Hello, welcome to the first episode of Artists on the Invisible featuring Prezleigh Moy. My name is Brianna Ibarra, singer-songwriter and artist, and I'm really happy to finally get these videos off the ground. Starting in May 2020, I started interviewing an artist friend of mine weekly to talk about invisible illness, mental health obstacles, and systemic issues in the music industry and the government, etc. So it was a really wonderful past 6 months interviewing these artists, and I hope you enjoy and share this video. We're trying to end a lot of stigmas, so if you want to continue the conversation, that helps us out too. So please leave a comment and like and subscribe. Thank you. Please tell us a little bit about your art and what you've been doing lately.
So let's see, the art that I'm doing right now it's really been kind of a wild storm of things at one time. But basically, I finished treatment for Lyme disease back in December of this past year. And as soon as that's when it started, I'm sorry. When it ended in April for this first round, I was like, cool, I'm going to start doing all the stuff that I wanted to do all these years. And so what I'm doing right now is I've been writing an album with my music partner. His name's Joshua Colburn. I don't know if he's on here or not. If he's really a good friend, he'll be here. So we'll see. But so we're doing music like that. We're writing an album for that. And then we also have this thing called Garden Punks. And basically, this is going to sound crazy, but my parents bought a farm. And on the farm are Lemurian quartz crystals. And you might ask yourself, what's a Lemurian quartz crystal? It's from a place called Lemuria, way, way, way back in the day. And it's pretty fascinating. So we dig those up. We make candles out of them. I think I might even have one. Yes. These are some of the candles we make. So they're made with like hand forged flowers and the quartz crystals and a bunch of other fun stuff. So that's pretty much what I'm doing. Music and gardening.
Of Garden Punks, I can say the candles are dope. Go on to the topic about mental health, invisible illness, like things that you've struggled with, and just your journey in that. Whatever you're willing to share. Nothing's off limits, but also if there's something that you want to leave out, that's totally cool too, as much as you want to share.
Yeah, so I'm pretty much an open book. I will answer really anything if it somehow helps or benefits somebody else. But long story short, I've had really bad symptoms for at least the past 8 or 9 years. So like seizures, numbness on the entire left side of my body, speech problems, a lot of hand tremors. I'd pass out in the shower. They really just couldn't figure out what it was. And one of the most frustrating aspects of it is that I truly believe that, and I'm not trying to make this a race thing, but I truly believe that women and their pain levels or what they're going through is often kind of chopped up to being, depression or anxiety. So quick example, I passed out in the shower and the EMTs came and their first question to me was, do you have a bad day at school? Which was incredibly frustrating because at that point I had already graduated college. And I was not having a bad day. I was legitimately sick. So fast forward to really just this past December, I got diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease. Basically, I had a huge infection on the left side of my brain, and they were really happy that they caught it when they did. And then, of course, with that happening, COVID comes. So while I'm in the middle of treatment, I have the immune system essentially of a patient who's on chemotherapy. So I was legitimately just locked inside my house with a mask and like a spray bottle of hand sanitizer everywhere. But through that is how I've been able to really connect a lot with the art that I'm doing and really finding how I can heal myself from the inside out. And I know you hear that all the time, but for me, completely changing my diet, meditation, finally getting a proper diagnosis, music, gardening, all those things have really helped especially for me, because if you look at me, I don't look sick. If you look really closely at me, you can see that I have hand tremors still. And I've always struggled with depression and anxiety. A few years ago, and I think most people, it's one of those things where people are always surprised, which it always makes me ask the question, like, what does a depressed person look like, you know? And apparently I don't look like a depressed person. I don't know necessarily what that is, but I was severely depressed, especially through college. I was probably some of the sickest that I've ever been while I was at APU with you. So that was really, really tough because I was dealing with a lot of cognitive problems, and I just felt like there was something mentally wrong with me, but that it was my fault. And so I used to really struggle a lot, and I think some of the teachers probably just thought I was an idiot. But I worked really hard, and I was able to get through it and finally get a diagnosis. But yeah, if you have mental health on you, so I always laugh about this, but my Kaiser chart says acne, clinical depression, fibromyalgia, chronic Lyme disease. Like those are the 4 keywords that describe my chart. And anytime you have mental health in there, they immediately are like, oh, that's probably it. That's why you have aches and pains. That's why you're passing out. That's why you have a stomach ache. Like just so many tests and so many frustrating conversations. I apparently couldn't even get my blood type because I was trying to figure that out, and they wouldn't give me that. So it's been a really, really long process. And aside from that, it just seems like every time there's a hurdle, there's another hurdle that I have to get over after that. So if it's not, Lyme disease and mental health, then it becomes COVID. And then, my immune system is really low, and I'm not getting, if you were to ask Kaiser right now, I don't actually have Lyme disease because when I was at some point in my life, I was given antibiotics. That's how crazy that is, that they would say, well, if you've been sick for 8 or 9 years and at some point in those 8 or 9 years you had antibiotics, then you're cured, which is totally not the case. Yeah. So, but the good news is, Brianna, is that, again, like my whole thing is that I'm really focusing on the interconnectedness of everything, right? And so because of Lyme disease, I was stuck at home, couldn't do anything. Then the quarantine is going on and was happening then, that I started garden punks with my partner. And through that, that's all we're doing. We just made jam a little while ago. And it's just giving me a lot of time to just put everything that I've done in my life into one world. And it's been really great. A lot better than where I used to be.
That's really beautiful that you think about it that way. I mean, because you have every right and every reason to be just bitter about the entire thing. But yeah, we have some comments here. Kendall from APU. I do remember that Kendall Apps. She was kind of a advocate for like what's it called, preventing Lyme disease, actually.
Yeah, her writing for, I believe it's called Ticked Off. Kendall, sorry if I have that right, but it is some of the greatest condensed writing of Lyme disease ever. It's really, really great. I think it's called Ticked Off.
Yeah, she can Ticked.
I think it might just be called Ticked. It's really, really good.
Yeah, so Kendall, you can, if you want, you can put that in the comments for anyone else.
Yeah, and I was, the crazy thing to me is how many times I was misdiagnosed, but how confident they were in the misdiagnosis. So I legitimately got phone calls of, oh, you have fibromyalgia. Never mind, you have endometriosis, so you'll probably never have kids. And I'm like, cool. Both of those things may have been true with Lyme disease, but ultimately I think Lyme disease is, since there's actually like some meat there that I could get to it.
Right.
But yeah, just been frustrating.
Yeah, the confidence is more, I feel like, more harmful than just the misdiagnosis itself.
Yeah, it's the confidence. I also had a doctor say, you've got a bunch of tiny tumors on your spine, so we're going to do a spinal tap and really see how this is. And while he was taking my fluid out, he goes, oh my God, I've never had anybody's fluid come out this slow. And I said, I'm like a maple tree, like maple syrup. But he did not think that joke was funny at all. Yeah.
Wow. Sense of humor.
That's neurologist, right?
So just a little more background. We were talking about APU a lot. For those who don't know what that is, that's the college that Prezleigh and I attended, and we actually were at the same major, a lot of the same ensembles. So I can, I mean, I have so many things about mental health at APU, but it's,
Right.
your
Yeah.
environment definitely affects that, not only, but also when it comes to your diagnosis, that also the environment you're in really matters.
And being at a Christian school, you know, APU is definitely a lot more liberal in many areas, and I loved going to APU.
Yeah.
But there's no denying that there's this aspect of, well, are you praying? You know, not necessarily to shame you, but like, how's your heart with God? How's your walk? What season are you in? You know, there's always, it's really, really hard to be chronically sick when you are religious, especially when you, for me, I'm like, what did I do? You know, and I know that that's a very, you know, immature and childish way to think of God, but man, like to be religious and to be that sick, it just makes you upset. And I've been depressed forever. And so I was like, I'm just made this way. You know, it wasn't like something happened later on in life. And I think there's a lot of people who are just like that. There is no explanation. People always ask me, why are you depressed? What's causing that? What's making you feel that way? And I nothing. There is nothing. I wish there was something.
Right.
It just is. One more thing I just remembered, because so this is it being an 8 or 9 year process. I feel like more things keep coming up later on. But a couple years ago, when I was at my sickest, I actually attempted suicide. And I don't mean to make this super, super serious all of a sudden. I'm not embarrassed by it, because I later found out that the majority of people, especially women who are in my age range, so like 25 to 30, are most likely to attempt suicide because of Lyme disease. And that just made me so upset, because whether that statistic is 100% true or not, the reality is I could have killed myself because I was so sick and no one was listening to me. Like it was really, really bad. And most people had no idea about this. I tried to keep it really close to just a few, but.
Thank you for being so open about that, because
Yeah.
there are people like I've watched shows like this, or like even like fictional things where like, oh, I experienced that too, and you're kind of validated. So I think it's really helpful for others.
Yeah, I'm really glad to hear that. I hope it is too. And I think there's, again, to bring it back to the interconnectedness, for me, I'm just seeing more and more that there's no way to eliminate how we're all connected, or how everything is somehow connected to each other in one way or another.
Right.
So being able to share this with you guys openly, it's therapeutic for me too, because I used to, honestly, where I was before, I couldn't be depressed. I couldn't tell people I was depressed or anxious. I really couldn't. And I know some people are like, oh, how could you not? Like, you could just say it. But so much was wrapped into it that I felt like I couldn't. So to be able to say this out loud and I'm not embarrassed by it. I'm not ashamed by it. I don't feel better than or less than for having depression and chronic illness, but I'm just fine talking about it and standing up for whoever needs it.
This is the first time somebody wanted to share a song.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that first?
Yeah. So, so I've always loved songwriting. And writing. That's been something that I've done really my whole life. But again, with all of my depression, anxiety, I was so afraid to share this with everyone. I was like, I've got to have some crazy changes in my songwriting. Like my melody has to be, I've got to really write it out and I was so crazy that I was just not writing, because I was so caught up in the theory of it and being perfectionistic. So the song that I'd love to share with you guys is one that I wrote a little while ago. It's one of my most recent ones. Long story short, I used to be engaged, fun times. This story, you could look into it as if it were a relationship between a woman and a man, where the woman has depression and the man just doesn't understand it, like the male figure in the relationship. Or you can look at it as a bigger picture of like how many voices are coming at you telling you not to be depressed. You know, that essentially where this all stemmed from was from a sermon where a pastor essentially said, you know, all you need for depression is a pair of running shoes in the Bible. And it's just incredibly invalidating to me. I think the intent and the heart behind that message is great, that if you can seek happiness and peace with what you already have, but it's incredibly invalidating. So this song is kind of me sarcastically replying to him.
Wonderful.
That makes sense.
I love it.
So I've never played this all the way through really for anyone. So when I met her, she was caught in the moon, settled down by 22. Said her sadness was a point of view and that he could pray away the blues. Well, if you're talking to angels, put in a good word for me. 'Cause on the day of my judgment, darling, sinners drink free. What is it about me, dear, that ain't good enough to keep you here? Yelling at the top of his lungs, my God, what do you fear? It was never about you, dear. No, if you just listen to hear. And I could scream at the top of my lungs, but it's only falling on deaf ears. When he met her, he had never been bruised. Now his skin is running out of room. She said her sadness was all that she knew, and that he deserved someone new. 'Cause if you're talking to angels, put in a good word for me. 'Cause on the day of my judgment, darling, sinners drink free. What is it about me, dear, that ain't good enough to keep you here? Yelling at the top of my lungs, good God, what do you fear? It was never about you, dear. No, if you just listen to hear. And I could scream at the top of my lungs, but it's only falling on deaf ears. You and I, like oil and wine, in the air, my angels share. You and I, like oil and wine, in the air, my angels share. What is it about me, dear? What is it about me, dear? What is it about me, dear?
Yay!
Thank you.
Oh my
I
goodness.
also played that in the wrong key, but you know, it's fine. We're good.
Hey, it sounded great. I could not tell if
Thank
it was. Yeah.
Normally
Don't
I
worry
wouldn't
about
say that, but we're all friends. We're all musicians here, I'm sure.
I think I've heard a little snippet of this. It's so the falling on deaf ears, like you said, the sarcasm
Yeah,
type of.
I think my favorite line that I've written, because this is honestly like, this is a message that I want to send to somebody specifically. But the line is, if you're talking to angels, put in a good word for me, because on the day of my judgment, sinners drink for free. So I feel like that's all I need to say about that story. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Jesus, that line is just masterful lyric writing.
Thanks.
To be very honest, goodness. Yeah, and the melody too. That chorus is like spot on. It doesn't matter if it, like you said, it's for a specific person, but you can definitely see yourself in it.
Yeah.
At any point in your life. That's really,
yeah. There's a couple
really
of little Easter eggs for anyone who's grown up in a church or is with a church right now.
Definitely. We had Tom Hines join earlier.
Oh, we did?
Yeah. I don't know if he's still on, but we got a lot of clapping emojis and compliments on the song. We do have a question for you. What kind of dog? I think you were talking about Barney and Bogey.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I have 3 dogs, and so Barney and Bogey, they were here with me. I think they're nervous. I get it. But one's Barney, one's Bogey. They're both rescue dogs. And then I also have a bearded dragon named Reggie, and a very grumpy turtle named Striper. And I used to have 2 guinea pigs named Hall and Jamiroquai, which totally doesn't make sense because at first I had 2 guinea pigs and I named them Hall and Oates. Classic.
Oh, so it's Hall and
And then Oates passed away. Oh, Barney's here. Wait, Barney, it's your debut.
Yay, Barney. I think Barney's the only dog of yours I've met.
I think. Thank you.
Oh, Barney's little beard.
Basically, Barney's an old British man stuck in a dog's body. Very stoic.
Amazing. I love Barney.
Barney loves you. Barney, that's the other thing. I highly recommend having therapy dogs. Okay? Don't worry about what people say. There's going to be so many people who are like, do you really need that dog? Is he a service dog? And you just say, yeah, he's my therapy dog. And he helps me a lot. And I don't understand why that inconveniences you in any other way.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about that. Here's the other one.
Bogey. Oh.
Now, quick side note, I can't tell you how many times people legitimately ask me the question, are they related? And I'm like, what is the scenario? Like, is he the baby in this? And is Barney the mom? So I've decided that when people ask me that, I'm going to say yes, but I'm going to say that Barney is his uncle.
Oh, that's great. I wanted to ask you a question about what are some things, I think I asked you this question already, about misconceptions that people have. We kind of touched on it a little bit with especially doctors not believing or them seeing mental health and being like, oh, it's just that. But even that things that you see in public or even with family members or friends or people on social media.
Yeah.
What are things, and Lyme disease in particular, like not many people know what that entails at all.
Yeah.
Especially because it's invisible, but it could be about Lyme disease or depression or anything like that.
Yeah, totally. I think there's a lot. I think it has to do with context a lot of the time. So coming from a Japanese family, they're all incredibly loving, but we're pretty quiet about our emotions. We're pretty quiet about any struggles that we're going through. I think one of our main philosophies is you let your work speak for who you are as a person. So it's really, so in that context, it was hard to express that, especially when, like to the family, I had a great childhood. I was properly fed and clothed. I got to go to college. I have an incredible family, but there's just a culture aspect of it that is hard to communicate. So I think that's one thing to keep in mind. I think another thing that I've really picked up on is that people around you love to keep tabs on you and love to pick up on patterns. So if I was out at the beach yesterday pre-COVID. And then the next day I'm home in bed. A lot of times I'd have people say, well, you were just at the beach yesterday, or I just saw you at the grocery store yesterday. And so the best description of this that I've heard of is something called spoonies. So if you go, like, there's a hashtag spoonies, and essentially what it is that let's say everybody has unlimited spoons. That's the idea. But people who have mental health problems or are struggling with anything or invisible illnesses, they have a limited supply. So let's say I only get 12 a day, but a quote unquote normal person gets a spoon for when they wake up, when they make their bed, when they get dressed, when they brush their teeth, when they eat, when they do their work, right? They can use a spoon for every single thing that they need to. But for people like me, I'm like, okay, I've got 12 spoons and I've got 100 things to do today. Like, how can I maximize these 12 spoons to get as much as I want to out of it? So I think another misconception is that, especially with someone, if you're somebody who has flare-ups or it's kind of in rotation, it's not like you're going to get depressed every third week of the month. There's no way to plan it. So I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that how people see you is how you are. So however you appear, and that's even beyond, social media status and the way you look and the way your body is, anything like that. I just mean that I really do think that so many people will look at you and say, well, this is how you look, this is how you act, this is how you seem to be. She seems fine to me. Like, she seems happy, she seems healthy. She's not like gaining or losing weight. I think for some reason weight always plays into women. If they're healthy, they're healthier when they're either they've gained weight or they've lost weight, depending on where they are. It always seems to be another misconception that your weight has to do with your health. Sometimes it does, but with me, like, my inflammation was crazy. So at one point, like, I was gaining more weight, and then another point after that, it looked like I had an eating disorder. So just because I look the way that I look doesn't mean that it's exactly how I am. So that's one thing. A few things. I think those are pretty much the main things, though. I feel like you can get a lot under the umbrella of those two.
Yeah, there's a lot there. And I just think about like pain management in general.
Oh God, I forgot about all the different meds they try to put me on.
Yeah. It's I mean, I remember working at a supplement store that shall not be named, actually, like, just like, oh, I need this and this and this in order to be at my optimal health. But like, most of the people didn't have any chronic illnesses or anything that required them to take many pills. And it was just like, I'm just not happy still, so I need to lose weight or take these crazy diet pills. And just to change yourself. But then, like, I don't think I ever had anyone coming in to that store that had any chronic illness or invisible illness or even diabetes or things like that were like, I mean, maybe they were looking for answers. Sometimes people are just looking for answers that are beyond prescription.
Yeah.
Which partially is, that of course there are holistic ways, but that's another thing I wanted to talk about, is like the holistic community and how it can be sometimes good, but also very gaslighting. I don't know if you've experienced that at all. Because I know you and I like love natural things, like as far as like essential oils and things like that. But we're not like, this will cure me.
Yeah, I'm really, really glad you brought that up, because for me, I'm very much of a, like, let's collect all the tools and use a combination of them when we can and when we need to. So growing up Asian, essential oils, I think, are essentially part of my blood. So I really have grown up with like mysterious jars of herbs underneath the sink of just like this healing medicine. And it always worked. And I always thought to myself, maybe it's a placebo, but regardless, if it is a placebo and it's making me feel better, then I'll take it. Like, that's the kind of, when you're in pain and when you are miserable, you'll take it. So my whole theory on it is, I think it's really great. You've got to educate yourself on who you are. So you've got to figure out, it doesn't matter what anybody else says. Doesn't matter what you're even, like that one person who's like, I have a friend whose cousin's brother once met this doctor and he said that you can't have essential oils. Regardless of any of that, like you've just got to figure out, what am I allergic to? Like what foods could be triggering this? The biggest thing is food. Meditation practices, the essential oils I use all the time so one thing about me is my liver. I've had so much damage to my liver because of all of the intravenous treatments that I had. So while I was getting antibiotics, I was getting IVs into my body, sometimes twice a day, 7 days a week, from December until April 27th, I believe. But while I was doing that, my diet was completely changed. I was taking a bunch of natural herbs and supplements. I was taking a lot of homeopathy and things like that. But I used it in a combination of those two things. So that definitely made a huge difference for me. I think with the gaslighting thing that you were talking about, I think that problem lies more in the people who are trying to get that message across. It's more of the people who want to be on a pedestal to say, like, this is all you need to do. Like, it's another version to me of saying all you need is a pair of running shoes in the Bible. It's just another version of that. And that's disregarding the intent and heart of people who are saying it. But nobody knows your body but you, and nobody's living through it but you. So, I think it's a combination of things, but ultimately you've just got to be an expert on yourself, as silly as that sounds.
No, definitely. I mean, I think when we're going through data, or not even data, but like we're just sifting through all the bullshit, like you have to, okay, is this information, okay, like assessing, am I resistant to this information, or am I automatically believing said information? What, and then also what experts have said about this, and like actual experts, right?
Yeah.
And doing that for yourself all the time. And I guess it can be exhausting, but like better that than you believing something that is completely conspiracy, like crazy. Yeah.
Like, prime example of this really quick is that you hear that blackberries are good for you, right? They're antioxidants, they're good for your hair and skin, all kinds of things, right? Everybody talks about blackberries being great for you. Well, I found out recently that blackberries are high with something, a type of iron called manganese. I could be saying that incorrectly. Long story short, Lyme disease is their bacteria is the only living organism that thrives off of manganese instead of iron. And I have an iron deficiency. Had I had any other disease, the disease wouldn't have survived because there wouldn't have been enough iron. But because I have the one disease and a low iron, or an iron deficiency, that it just was the perfect birthplace of it. So I used to eat blackberries all the time. And that's what I mean. Like, blackberries are great for you or for other people if you're not allergic, things like that. But for me, I legitimately had a piece of bread with blackberry jam and I was out for the rest of the day, like completely out. I don't remember what happened. I just remember, that feeling when you like fall asleep with a nap and then it's dark outside and you're all sweaty and you hate yourself. Like, that was my moment for me. But that's what I'm saying, is that I think if I were to give anybody a small bit of advice, it would be to find things that you're interested in, like routes of health that you're interested in that could apply to you, as opposed to just trying to catch up with what everybody else is doing, because it may not really apply to you anyway.
Yes, I'm typing this down literally. Like, I love that.
Great.
trying to catch up with what everyone else is doing. Yeah, because like keeping up with the Joneses type of mentality, you don't really, there's no sense of individual with that.
Yeah, you're not setting yourself up to be on a journey for yourself. Like, it really does make a huge difference if you're just doing it because you want to thank your body for doing all that it does by feeding it what it needs and loving your body the way it needs to. I mean, I think one of the biggest pieces of meditation that I have adopted and use all the time is breathing and then thanking your body for all that it does to make that one breath happen. And I think that that's the baseline of everything for me.
That reminds me of like, it's kind of like KonMari for your body.
Yeah.
Yeah, if audience members don't know what KonMari is, basically the part that I'm talking about is the part where you like your possessions, like you take like this possession I have. If I decide I don't want it anymore, I'm like, thank you for all the memories you gave me, etc. And then you give it away.
Yeah.
But like for your body, like it's our bodies are amazing. Like they can also be terrifying and they can do horrible things as well. But just the fact that we can create music
Yeah.
and we can breathe and that our body processes food and gives us nourishment are things to be grateful for too,
Mm-hmm.
even when things have gone awry.
100%. Even if you eat a few blackberries and then basically turn into Sleeping Beauty for the rest of the day.
I had not an exact similarity, but when I had 3 surgeries in 1 year.
Yes.
Yeah, you were with me, like my sophomore year. And my second surgery was no third. The last surgery was my tonsillectomy because it was all dealing with how I could breathe better because I had
Yes.
the jaw,
And
and some tooth extractions, and then the last one was a tonsil. And I always tell this story because my cousin meant well. He made me a smoothie. And it looked like a berry smoothie, and berries, I guess, were fine. But then he didn't tell me that he put pineapple in the smoothie, and I still had stitches.
oh God. No. My parents are dentists, so I understand that whole thing in a different way.
Yeah.
My God. How are you doing?
It was fine. It was just like, I don't know why I'm in such pain. I can't breathe. It was like swelling up.
Yeah, and you feel kind of crazy. I can't tell you how many times I've been like, maybe people do just pass out for 5 hours in the shower. Like that's where I got.
Yeah.
I said maybe I'm just a baby. Maybe bone density loss isn't as painful as I think it is. You know, but that's where the whole gaslighting thing comes in.
Yeah, you start to believe it. Definitely, you hear it enough. And
Yeah, I was like, I'm just depressed. That's why I am in pain all the time. Why I, all of these things. But it was a symptom, not the cause. And I think that's a really, really important thing with mental health is it a symptom or is it the root cause? And that's a huge difference because if you feel like it's a symptom, there's an underlying cause that we're all missing.
Yeah, because for some, depression could be cause of other things. But actually, my previous guest, Scarlett Gross, we talked about ADHD and how the depression that she had experienced through most of her life was, like you said, people just kept discounting her and saying, "Oh, well, you're just depressed. You're just depressed." But she realized that she had ADHD her whole life and only got diagnosed when she was in her early 30s. So it's
wow. Yeah, see, what do you
and
do?
because those things can cause depression because you feel like you're just so different that you can't live life well. And like, why can't I do these things like other people can? And you invalidate yourself.
Yeah, because being sick, it takes a toll on you. I mean, just think about how you feel when when a loved one has passed away, or if you're dealing with a breakup. Like, how much does that take out of you mentally, emotionally, and physically? Now, imagine doing that every day. Like, that's the type of internal trauma that people with mental health and invisible illnesses are going through. There's constantly trauma inside their bodies. We just can't see it. So it comes out in other ways.
We are just in the last 5 minutes. I wanted to ask if there are any like last thoughts, and also maybe a guiding question would be, we kind of talked about it with the song, but how are these things, do you feel like they have either informed your artistry or hindered it, or somewhere in between, anything like that?
Yeah, it before was a huge blockage in me. And there's essentially the art of mindfulness, right? And using suffering for your benefit as opposed to kind of taking the woe is me route. So I definitely feel like I've taken more ownership over all that I've gone through and am going through, and I'm using it for a tool to, like, a catalyst for my art. So I don't know if it's okay, but if I could play one more song, I feel like that song does a better job of explaining it. But it's exactly where I am right now. And again, you can think of it as a story of two people who met from completely opposite ends of the earth and came together and are in love. Or you can think of it as climbing up a huge mountain of depression and you've made it to the top. And why would you ever want to come down from here? So is that okay?
Definitely. Definitely.
Okay.
We're not on the Instagram like time limit. So even if we go a little over, it's all right. It's all good.
Okay. I'm trying to remember if I put it. Okay. Here we go. Another song this is a new song. I wrote this with Joshua. So here we go.
What is it called?
This song is called Used to Be. I think that's what we called it. Yeah. Okay. I don't wanna go back down to where I used to be. If you've ever seen the view from here, you know just what I mean. The chain was never strong enough to keep me down below. So I drew a map and found you there, all the places we would go. Oh, I won't let me ever slip away. I love to love you like this every single day. I came in like a hurricane and you a perfect storm. So we hunker down and ride it out, leaving troubles at the shore. Before we knew the night had passed, we sailed across the sea. So we learned new tongues and carried on, leave the worms below our feet. Oh, I won't let me ever slip away. I love to love you like this every single day. Let's not be the talk of the town. Live this life that we found. Take our time, watch the flowers bloom. When all of the wars have been won, long after the battles are done, I'll still be fighting for me and you. Oh, I won't let me ever slip away. I love to love you like this every single day. And that is how I feel these days.
Wow. Dude, I want to hear all these things like all the time. I think people they're beautiful songs, and they're so relatable, and they're, yeah, brilliant job. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you'd like to help Prezleigh out, there are some links in the description where you can find Garden Punk's shop, as well as the GoFundMe to help Prezleigh with her treatments. If you'd like to help the podcast, we accept donations via Venmo or PayPal. It helps us keep it running, and I appreciate you watching. Stay tuned for next interview.